Let's try another Leetcode problem, number 152. This is another blood 75 problem. So it's from that blood 75 list. So it means this is very popular. And if you solve this problem, normally you can solve a lot of other following problems because basically they are very same, or even those problems are easier than this one, because this one normally you need to check the state, manipulate of the state. It is not just a 1D array. You have to check the previous state, because for the product of the nums, it can be a positive number or it can be a negative number, because there are positive and negative numbers inside. This means this is harder than the other questions. Now let me explain it, how can I approach this problem in whiteboard, and after that I will go to the code editor to finish the coding. So basically we are going to find two numbers. The numbers should be continuous, as the subarray is a continuous array inside this nums. Yeah. So for example, this 2 and 3, 2 times 3 is the maximum. You cannot have a maximum number than this. And for example, this is only 0. Now let me go to the whiteboard to finish the explanation. After that, I could go to the code editor to finish the coding. So for example, we have this array 2, 3, minus 2, and 4. If we are going to calculate this number, for example, minus 2, so what is the maximum? It can be the previous number, 2 times 3, it is 6. So 6 times minus 2, it is minus 12. As we know it, it is not the maximum. It may be the minimum. But what about the maximum? If this number 2 becomes minus 2, so minus 2 times 3 may be minus 6. This is the previous state. So if it has a minus 6, and then minus 6 times minus 2, it is 12. It is the maximum. Yeah. So it means we are going to use multiplication, and there are positive and negative numbers. We need to check the condition. So there are two conditions. One condition is the previous state. So there are basically two states. So the first state is there is a number that is positive before this minus 2. Another state is state, let's call it state 2. This is state 1. There may be a number be negative before this minus 2. But what we need to have is the maximum number. Like we need to have the maximum number, maybe the positive, or the minimum number, maybe the negative. Because in that way, either of that, we should get one of our state. For example, if this number is minus 2, we times this minus 6, we got the 12. It's the maximum. Or maybe this number is 2, we times this number is also 2. This number 2 times the 6, it is the result. But we also need to make sure that the numbers are continuous. It means the start of the number can be someplace. It can be the first place, or the second place, or the third place. It means when we are checking the state, when we are checking the current, I'm going to use two variables, current minimum and current maximum. So this is the current minimum and current maximum. When I check the current minimum, it means the state before this minus 2. The current maximum is the maximum state before this minus 2. So basically there are two states. But for each of the state, I need to also check with my current nums. So if my current nums, so I can start from this nums, or I can start from earlier. It doesn't matter, but I have to check. Yeah, include all the conditions. So the current, so here I have my current nums. Yeah, for example, this may be current nums I, and also I need to have two values. One value is the maximum, another value is the minimum to have the. So for example, if I were to calculate the current maximum, I need to include the nums I, and also the value before him. Before him, it may be a current minimum, and need to times my nums I. Yeah, and also I need to have this current maximum times nums I, because this minus 2 can times the previous state plus positive 6 or negative 6. It can be a state of the answer. Yeah. So the final result should be my result with the current maximum. Yeah. So basically, need to check two conditions. One condition is what is the current minimum before this minus 2, before this number. What is the current maximum before this minus 2? For example, the current minimum for this array, minus 2, let's make it like the example, positive 2, 3, minus 2. So what is the maximum? It is current maximum. It is 6. What about the current minimum? As we defined, this 2 is the minimum. So the current minimum is this 2, because 2 times 3 is bigger. So 2 is smaller than 3. So the current minimum is 2. So my current number is minus 2. So what is the result? The result would be minus 2 times 6. And minus 2 times 2, it is minus 4 and minus 12. Yeah, it is minus 4 and minus 12, and the current name is minus 2. So the current num is minus 2. But what about the previous maximum? It is 6. We didn't need to times this minus 2. So the maximum is 6. And this minimum is 2 times minus 2. So we need to basically compare these three numbers, minus 4, 6, and minus 2. But this is include the minus 2 conditions. But before minus 2, yeah, let me explain it once more. Yeah, but before minus 2, we have some conditions. The maximum has already been a 6. We've got our result. But if we were to include this minus 2, what's going to happen? Yeah, it may be 6 times minus 2, minus 12. And 2 minus 2, it is minus 4. And we can also choose the minus 2. So what is the result? It is minus 2. But before that, we've already got the maximum. It's 6. So the final result would be still be the 6. Yeah. Now let me go to the code editor. It would be much easier to understand what I mean. As I explained, we are going to have some variables, current minimum and current maximum. And also, the result should be equal to nums 0, because we will have at least one number, because nums length is more than or equal to 1. Yeah. And we are going to have the n equal to len nums. It is the length of the array. And then we can just use the for loop to loop through all the index. So for I in range, we can start from 1 to n. And here, before we use the current minimum or maximum, we need to use a temp, because we don't want to change the value. Yeah, should be equal to the current max. I will explain this line later, but let's check the current max. So what is the current max? The current max should be equal to the max of the nums I, because this nums I means any condition. If this is a very big number and other conditions cannot have the multiplication bigger than this number, we will still have this number. Yeah, it means it will start from any place. And we also need to make sure the numbers should be continuous. So how to make it continuous? So we need to use the current max times this current max times this nums I. So this means for our DP array, everything is continuous. Yeah. So maybe we will get a maximum value or the minimum value, but it doesn't matter. It's just a state. We need to compare with all of them. Yeah. So the current minimum should also times nums I, because we are not sure which one is the biggest. It may be this one, or maybe current max times nums I. Maybe this is a max number positive. This is also a positive. It can be the biggest. Or maybe this is a negative number. This is also a negative number. It can be the biggest. So this is basically the current max. So for the current minimum, it's also the same. The current minimum, I just need to change this to minimum, and the nums still be the same. But here, for the current max, I cannot use this current max because this has already changed the state. It's not my state. My state should be this temp. Yeah, because I don't want to change it. It influenced my calculation. I need to have a temp. Yeah, so this temp variable is actually the current max. Because these two conditions are parallel at the same time, it cannot be this one finished and then I use current max. It will influence my minimum calculations. So I should have to use this temp. Yeah, and here should also be the same. After that, I need to get my result. So my result would be the max of the current maximum with my result. Because I don't need to check the minimum. Yeah, because here is minimum, not maximum. Because I want to get maybe a minimum value, a negative value. It is the minimum. And then it times a negative value. It can become the maximum. So my result is just needed to get the current max with my result. So the result can be, yeah, as I explained earlier, it can be very big from the beginning, like 2, 3, already be 6. No matter what you include or other numbers, it cannot be more than the 6. Yeah. Now let me return the result and check if it is okay for our algorithm. Yeah, it seems okay. Now let me submit it. And after that, let's analyze the time complexity. I have to say this problem is very famous. You see that it is like more than 99% of all submissions. This kind of problem is very famous, especially this one, because we need to keep two states. And we also need to keep track of the nums I and keep it continuous. So in this way, we can keep it continuous. In this way, it means the nums I can start from any positions. So the time complexity is O(n). The space complexity is just O1 because I didn't use any arrays. Yeah. And this problem can be extended to like more than 10 problems in Leetcode. So this is just some of the questions. There are 5 questions similar. Actually, there are more than 10 questions like that. The idea is like the current minimum or the current maximum. So actually, this current is the state just at this number. Yeah, when I go to this number, I have a state. Actually, it should be previous minimum and previous max. Yeah, but I use current to mean my current state. Yeah, because I'm going to check my current result. So this is my current result. Yeah. Thank you for watching. If you think this is helpful, please like and subscribe. I will upload